Hope. My name is Jenny Wang, and I am from the Keep Taiwan Free movement. Thank you so much to Georgie, Nagawang, and the Regional Tibetan Youth Congress in New Jersey and New York for the kind invitation to join this important panel discussion. I'm humbled to share this stage with my fellow panelists here today. Dolken Isa, it's wonderful to finally meet you and to thank you in person for your letter of support to Keep Taiwan Free in 2018. I have a quote here that you wrote in that letter that resonates strongly with our panel today, and I would like to share it with everyone here. Quote, "The parallels between our respective situations are strong. If we are to ensure our basic rights are respected, if we are to achieve a future for our peoples, if we are to enjoy democracy and self-determination as so many others around the world are able to, then we must learn to come together and speak with one voice." Thank you, Dolken Isa. We all agree with you, and I look forward to learning from you today. Dolken Suo, you were one of the first people I texted when I learned that China blocked me on LinkedIn this summer. Because I know you were also blocked on LinkedIn. You listened while I shared my feelings, and you gave me advice. And then you told me that I should be proud and that this is a badge of honor. I am grateful for your continued allyship. Ngubatu Togachog. From protests in front of the United Nations on the east side, to demonstrations in front of the Consulate General of the PRC on the west side, it is truly exciting to be sitting here today with you for a panel discussion. We are usually outside on the streets together, so it's pretty nice to be indoors this time. Lastly, Francis, I am in awe of you for not only your overseas activism for the Hong Kong democracy movement in Boston, but for your ongoing allied efforts as well. Thank you for joining Keep Taiwan Free at our 2019 annual rally, where you shared strong words of solidarity, inspiration, and hope. I am excited to follow your future endeavors. Please know you always have my support for your activism. The Keep Taiwan Free movement actually started about 2 decades ago in the early 90s by our Taiwanese American community here in New York City. It was roughly 20 years after Taiwan, formerly known as the Republic of China, ROC, lost its UN membership under Resolution 2758. Back then, the 2 main goals of the movement were to spread awareness about Taiwan's unfair exclusion from the global community and to turn our young island nation into a new and independent country, shedding the colonial roots of the ROC and starting anew. As the movement, once known as UN for Taiwan, was passed down generations, now onto us, we have taken it into our own hands to also include a 3rd new main goal, and that goal is to safeguard human rights and democracy against the Chinese Communist Party's aggression. I started my activism 8 years ago, and I am by no means an expert. Born and raised in the United States, I am constantly learning and relearning, awakening and reawakening. The people of Taiwan's story continue to be a huge inspiration to me today. Yesterday marked the 73rd anniversary of the February 28th massacre in Taiwan. It was a critical event in Taiwan's modern history and shaping of a unique and distinct Taiwanese identity. The massacre was committed by the Kuomintang, Chinese Nationalist Party, and it was followed by nearly 4 decades of martial law, a time when human rights were suppressed, a time of enforced disappearances, torture, imprisonments, and deaths. Many facts about Taiwan's authoritarianism's past still remain a mystery, which has resulted to ongoing multi-generational trauma and a sadness many Taiwanese still experience today. When I reflect on this history and take into current events, I realize and believe that being Taiwanese American means learning my people's own story, sharing this story, and also learning more stories from other communities and how I can help share their stories too. The people of Taiwan have fought against injustices. Of these injustices, many of which are different, but also similar to those our friends in Hong Kong, Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, and indeed China are currently still facing. Your resistance and courage are an inspiration to me and my community. In light of our collective experiences, it is ever more crucial for us all to stand together and support one another. It is wonderful how we have representatives here from 6 movements here today. I look forward to this opportunity to discuss more and familiarize ourselves with each other's movements. I'm excited to learn from all of you on how we can further strengthen our movements and, most importantly, work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Next, we have Zhou Lu from Humanitarian China and Taiwanese tenement student leader. Sorry, Chinese tenement student leader.
Thank you, Doji. It's an honor to be here among the distinguished speakers, guests, panelists. I always feel at home with Tibetan friends. 10 days ago, I was at the New Year party and with food, dance, everything. I never had such a Chinese New Year party here. And my journey for China's freedom and democracy actually coincided some part of it with Tibet's fight too. So in 1989, the call for freedom and democracy by millions of people in China, hundreds of cities were brutally crushed by tanks. And earlier, so the first martial law was implemented in Lhasa, and we share this pain from the communist regime. And even here in the United States, we are facing the same challenge. In year 2008, about the same time as now, I was beaten by supporters of Chinese Olympic when the torch was passing through San Francisco. And with me were Tibetan protesters. Today our topic is China's, CCP's China's threat to the world. And it's not only to the freedom and democracy, and as we can see today from the coronavirus, it's threatening the lives of everyone in this world. It is a virus of unknown nature. Think about it. China has the most sophisticated surveillance technology. Everyone, we can map everyone's day-to-day movement, but for now, we don't even know who the number 0, the first patient is. How can this be? We don't really know. But of course, this regime has a lot to hide. And now, people, all these people who were brave enough to speak out, like this Dr. Li Wenliang, was censored, and he died as a result. But there are thousands being punished simply for talking about it now, today. Such is this regime, and that's why we are facing this. The world is facing this, even here in this room. I'm really glad so many come. I was warned by a lot of you not to come. So that's the situation. I mean, how we came here, all the way. A lot of it went back to 31 years ago. There was a hope for democracy in China. It was so close, almost within reach, but it was crushed. And the United States allowed this regime to survive within a month of the massacre. President Bush sent a special envoy. I was in prison when I heard this news to talk to Deng Xiaoping. Later we knew that he basically said, we don't really care, we want to be friends because we want to be strategic partner, whatever. And that's how the world, I think this is the most important factor to shape today's world, is the United States has made the wrong decision. And China has taken a completely wrong path from that. That's why even here today, we have heard a lot of good discussions from Lobsang, from Dokun about the influence of China on international organizations, Interpol, World Health Organization. Think about it. It's like a propaganda machine for the communist China. It never asks a question, the origin of this virus. It always praises Xi Jinping when it talks about this virus. At the same time, it kept Taiwan out of the loop for simply sharing the information. And how could we allow such organizations to exist? I will talk more about what's happening in the United States. Just within 1 mile from here, in July, when the president of Taiwan was visiting, dozens of Chinese democracy activists were beaten by Chinese thugs who support CCP here in the United States. Guess what? Today, there's no arrest by NYPD police. They did nothing. It's very difficult for us, for the Chinese dissident community. We are so isolated. For a lot of times, I just feel that it's our failure that's causing the world such pain. On the other hand, people who keep fighting now, we are in a much weaker position than, for example, the Tibetan community. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the United States is partnering with such a regime. And there are so many people, institutions, who can benefit from this dirty deal. And they allow the influence to happen here. I guess people have heard about the world, like most renowned chemist, the department head of Harvard was charged for taking Chinese money. And think about it. And another one, a top German biologist is moving his library, all his labs to Shanghai, simply because he can get the best deal from such a regime. And just imagine what kind of impact it could have on the world if it's something else just coming out from this lab. And when Liu Xiaobo died, he was the second Nobel Peace Laureate to die in prison. And the United States didn't even make a strong statement. And think about the parallel to Hitler's Germany years ago. And that's when the first Nobel Peace Laureate died in prison. And we want to make a sculpture for Liu Xiaobo. And we proposed that to Columbia University because this is where he came back from. He was a visiting scholar at Columbia University 31 years ago at about this time. And when he saw the protest, he went back and devoted his life to China's democracy. Guess what? Columbia said no. And Columbia is also the only university, so-called Ivy League, with the Confucius Institute. So that's what we are facing. And think about also for example, NBA's censorship of its staff supporting Hong Kong. And this is just overwhelming. And a lot for me personally too. You mentioned LinkedIn censored my post on LinkedIn because it's visible to Chinese within China. And so when the Hong Kong protests were happening, there was a Taiwanese restaurant owner in Chile who support Hong Kong freedom. And then his restaurant was under siege from the Chinese thugs. And then eventually these people even threatened me, gave me a life warning. They didn't know I'm here. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so that's such a regime. So it's a lot of we are seeing it everywhere, and it's not only through Chinese company or multinationals who do business in China. It's through pretty much many institutions here, United States, everywhere. Even President Trump, he mentioned this regular flu, as a comparison to the coronavirus pandemic. This sounds very strangely familiar because this was exactly what China has been brainwashing Chinese people with. I mean, how could it get into the brain of President of United States? But anyway, today, I think the good news is a lot more people are waking up simply because of this. For example, I mean within China too. For example, here, our dissident community, we work very hard to recruit young people, but we never succeed simply because they have family in China and they are monitored at every step. But when Dr. Li Wenliang died, there was a rally for him at Central Park. About 300 people show up because this is one person that they can all identify. And it's a moment that allowed in China realize this freedom is so precious. It's essential for your life, for your survival. And of course, I appreciate the change of policy in the United States too, in the recent years too. I think the